Hi everyone, Hannah Sutor here. I am a product manager at GitLab for Authentication and Authorization. I wanted to take a dive and give a little recap into a conference I went to about a month ago now called Internet Identity Workshop. And I will tell you a little bit about what I learned there, some takeaways, and kind of the excitement that I got about the identity industry from being at this conference. So a little bit about the conference. It's called Internet Identity Workshop, and it very much is a workshop. So it's a conference, but it's run in this format called an unconference. So there's no presentations or agenda ahead of time. Everything is developed as a group. I think there was about 250 of us, and we were all at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California. I think it was almost everyone's first post-COVID conference, so it was kind of weird being back in a large group like that. But what we did was we sat at this spiral shape, as you can see in this photo here, and people called sessions. So anyone can call a session. You can call a session about anything, and you kind of give a one-sentence explanation of what your session is. You write it on one of these colored pieces of paper, and then you go and put it on the agenda wall, which I will show you what that looks like. So they have this huge wall that's mapped out into different rooms and different times. And each day can have about 50 different sessions in it. So you kind of go up, put your session on the wall. Some are discussions or roundtables just with a thought, a prompt. Others are more presentation, if you've been working on something and want to present it and get feedback. But overall, the sessions are really interactive. So it's a little bit different from a normal conference in that way. And there's this rule of thumb. They have a creative way of saying it, but I forget what it is. But it's basically like, if you find yourself sitting in a session and you're not adding value and you're not getting any value out of it, then use your feet, get up, walk out, go to the next session. So it's really open in terms of, you'll see people spending 5 or 10 minutes in a session, then checking out another session. There's so much to consume. It feels like just even being in the same session, it's like, what else am I missing out on? So every session, there's notes taken. And then at the end of the conference, it's all compiled into a book called the Book of Proceedings. And so it ends up being a PDF freely available on the Internet Identity Workshop's website. Anyone can grab it, but it's all the notes from all of the sessions. And here's just an example of what was on the agenda. So a lot of, for those in identity, a lot of these topics will be familiar. It was a lot of more cutting edge identity, the future of identity, and not so much, I don't know, more of the legacy or the standard type of identity things that we mostly deal with in enterprises now. It's more like forward thinking. I thought I'd give a list. I tried to jog my memory of kind of what were the big themes amongst all these topics. So there was a lot about DIDs. It felt like every word everyone was saying was did. So this is kind of like, no one entity can own your identity, and it's verifiable only on the blockchain. So there's no like one body that is verifying the identities either. So that was a big topic. There was a lot about the ethics of identity and how, once we start getting into biometrics and things like that, who owns this data and how can you revoke? You've given your biometric information to someone, is there a way to get it back and get them to forget it? A lot about self-sovereign identity, verifiable credentials, digital wallets. I think the EU is the first one to pass a digital wallet legislation. So I'd recommend looking into that if that's interesting to you. There was sort of a controversial topic here with WorldCoin, which if you don't know what that is, I put a whole separate slide on it, so I'll explain it. There was a lot of talk in sessions on kind of like the need for standards, and there's lots of bodies kind of participating in standards development, but there's no one overarching standard for a lot of these things. So there's a lot of different integrations and ways of interacting with all this identity data, but it's not quite standardized yet. And kind of how do we get there? There is a new identifier that is now ISO approved called a legal entity identifier, and that's about identifying an organization or a company. And so sure, I can be, a person on the internet and this is my name, but how do I prove that I'm a company? The Hyperledger Foundation had quite a presence and ran a lot of workshops. They do open source software for blockchain projects, and it seems like a very bustling group full of people who are excited about participating, and they're definitely open. So look into that if that strikes your fancy. And then the last thing I thought was pretty interesting was the presence of government entities. And this was mainly with the driver's license government entities. So the people who hold that data today, right, are kind of like the ones who can verify credentials, because they are the ones that have that print the official driver's license that we all think of. And so I think that they're looking to understand where the future of identity is going and how credentialing will be done in the future and verification, and understand where they fit in, because it's probably not going to be the piece of plastic in your wallet anymore. All right, so WorldCoin. This is interesting because this is a company that developed this shiny silver thing you can see in these photos. They call it the orb. What it does is you scan your retinas into the orb, and what the premise is that everyone, just by nature of being human, deserves to have a stake in the crypto world. So WorldCoin is crypto. By scanning your retinas, you get a portion of this crypto. But there's been controversy around this, and that's what I linked to here. This is the MIT Technology Review. So the founders of WorldCoin were here at IIW. They brought an orb, and they talked all about it. And then there was also the journalist at IIW who writes about ethics of identity and technology. She's the one that wrote this article, and it was interesting to see kind of the tension between the questions like she was asking and then the answers of the startup founders. The concern being that mainly WorldCoin is going into third world countries, gathering biometric data without really a policy around it, without any value behind the crypto right now. So it's really not worth anything. It's just the premise that some point in the future, this WorldCoin will be worth something. And then, the other side of it is that WorldCoin is saying, like, these people don't even have verifiable credentials, but, the iris scan is something that most people do have. And so this is a way to give people crypto, like just being human. You don't need to be in the position of having verifiable credentials. You don't need to live in a country that gives you those. So they're saying it's all about sort of humanizing the crypto world and giving everyone a free slice of the pie, so you could say. So it's interesting to hear both sides here. Another takeaway I had was, holy crap, there is a lot of jobs. What I didn't take a picture of here, this is actually from my Twitter, is there was a paper that said like job seekers, and it was completely blank. But the job board, they kept having to add more and more pieces of paper because there's so many people operating in this space. And I think it's really exciting. We're kind of at the beginning, I think, of almost I don't know if you'd say the birth or the rebirth of the identity industry, but I think it's definitely something different than what we're used to in terms of thinking of, a driver's license or a passport or a username and password set. Where we're headed is really different and really exciting. And I think this is a great time to be in the identity industry. And that's really it. It was great to be in person. It was great to be amongst, like-minded individuals. And, it was one of those things where you felt like I walked in and I knew, I'm an identity product manager. I know this stuff. And then to just learn about how much you don't know is always a humbling experience. They run it twice a year. I definitely plan on going back. Feel free to leave a comment or ask me any questions you have, and hope you enjoyed this.